What we saw last night from Gary Neville was nothing short of a disgrace. Let's just be blunt about it. It was some of the worst punditry, some of the worst commentary we have ever had to endure. And it all stems from this weird obsession that people have with sticking it on Arsenal fans. And some will see this as defending Arsenal. I see this as defending and protecting football by and large, because there's times to criticize managers, players, and teams. There's times to criticize fans because we do things wrong as well. But I believe this onslaught has been going on for far too long and is massively over the top. And we're going to break down why. What Gary Neville did last night, I think, is a disgrace to football. The media reaction since has been abominable. Has been an abomination. And I don't understand why there is such an obsession with these attacks. Please like, share, and get yourself subscribing to the channel right now. And if you can, turn the bell notification button on as well. Now, I saw this tweet that came out from Paddy Power, which, again, is funny. It holds a lot of water, in my personal opinion. I think there is a lot of truth to what I'm seeing here. But what I found very interesting when kind of looking at this is I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And everybody else was watching it and thinking, Chelsea should try and do something here. Chelsea should try and attack. But Gary Neville just kept on going on about how negative Arsenal were, how Arsenal weren't trying to attack, how Arsenal were being sort of taking too big a risk, how they had to try and attack more to win the game, how Rossini would be really happy with what he was doing. And 99% of Chelsea fans that I follow, 99% of Chelsea fans I spoke to after the game, couldn't understand what he was talking about. It was Chelsea that had to attack. It was Chelsea that had to take risks. And it was Arsenal that didn't. Arsenal didn't get dragged into any games. I couldn't understand. I couldn't fathom what he was saying. This is what I saw after the game as well on TalkSport. So I want to thank you very much to Joe who sent this clip into us. Because again, this is carrying on from what Gary Neville started yesterday.
Try and beat Arsenal that way. But when they tried to score, they just couldn't. Just didn't do enough in front of goal.
I know, but you're talking about players here and a lot of money who are good players and make something happen. I know, look, credit to Arsenal. Defensively, they're fantastic. You can't get away from it. They're so hard to break down. But take some risks. You know, do something out of the ordinary. Make something happen.
Take some risks. Why? What need is there to take risks when you're winning? And this is exactly what Gary Neville was pulling on. This is exactly what Gary Neville was doing in the game. Screaming, take risks. Do something. Make something happen when they didn't need to. And I felt this was such a poor and bad message to send. Because what Gary Neville would have done had they taken risks. Let's just paint a picture here. The fullbacks keep pushing forward, keep overlapping, vacating the space in the channels. And let's say João Pedro and Delap were exploiting that space. That was pulling Arsenal centre-backs further apart, which made room in the middle for the Enzos of this world, who can be dangerous when they crush and crash into that box space. They break, they move the ball into the channel, they cross the ball, 1-0 via Enzo. The same Gary Neville, the same Jamie O'Hara, 99% of the journalists, 99% of the pundits would have come out and said, stupid Arteta, gun-ho Arteta, no game management, can't handle the pressure, got it all wrong again. The word bottling it would most certainly have been used last night and pushed around social media. Now, I know the Arsenal players couldn't directly hear what was being said. I know the fans at the ground couldn't hear what was being said. But the way they tried to gaslight football supporters all around the world last night was absolutely embarrassing on every level. Embarrassing on every level. But you've got to remember what this is. 90% of what they do now is about planting a seed for the future. And we're seeing it at Man United right now as well. We're seeing it at Manchester United, where I've heard 3 pundits and at least 2 journalists in the last couple of days say United fans are getting happy about winning 3 on a row, but you do realize winning at this rate is unsustainable. Of course it is, because no manager is going to continue to win 100% of their games. We all know it is unsustainable. Equally, the greatest teams of all time had bad performances. So should we have a bad performance in one of our next 1, 2, 3 games, we'll criticize it. But the seed's being planted, and it's being planted incorrectly to go, we told you United fans were getting carried away. We told you United fans were going over the top. Now, there'll be a handful, just like there's a handful of Arsenal fans who go over the top. But the majority of us are just praising what we see. The majority of us are being very fair in what we're breaking down, the same as Arsenal fans. And where this has all become a little bit of a problem is when you see...
there's 5-6 minutes left. I'm looking at it going...
when you see these types of articles, and this was put out yesterday, which is one of the most clickbaity, not even clickbaity, but rage-baity nonsense headlines I've ever seen, which is from embarrassing tifos to the groundbreaking AFTV. Arsenal supporters are increasingly regarded as undignified weirdos. The over-celebrating, the panic attacks over every drop point in the Premier League, and the unfounded conspiracy theories make them football's flat earthers. And I personally feel that this kind of rhetoric, this kind of conversation, this type of talk is disgusting. And the reason I say that is because this weekend, City fans did the exact same thing. There's a conspiracy. The PGMOL don't want us to win. All of that stemmed from what Rodri did. And that's with a couple of weeks of bad decisions. Yet the same fan base were telling Arsenal fans to take accountability and put pressure on their team to perform better when Arsenal fans were moaning about conspiracies. When the truth is, there is no conspiracy. There's just really bad, incompetent refereeing that people like myself have been calling out for years, but nobody wants to have the sensible conversation. But to label Arsenal fans as the conspiracy theorists when every single fan base does it is absolutely ridiculous. But what isn't helped is by the way the mainstream media push this nonsense, push these narratives, the over-celebrating. What over-celebrating? Arsenal players do not celebrate more after wins than any other group of players I've ever seen before in the Premier League. It's never been done. The difference is the mainstream media makes a big song and dance about it, so everybody hyper-focuses on that situation. The panic attacks over every drop point. I have called this out in the last few weeks. I think Arsenal fans need to relax. But how can Arsenal fans relax when they're consistently being gaslit by the media, by the ex-pro pundits, by the Arteta outers, that every time there's a sniff of trouble, the world is coming to an end? How do you expect them to stay calm when City draw away at Sunderland and the media say that could be a really good point come the end of the season? Arsenal draw at Sunderland and that's it. Their season could be over. They could bottle it. The narrative isn't the same or even similar for both clubs. Therefore, why do you expect their fans to behave in the same way when they're not treated the same way? The conspiracy theory element we've already dropped on. The undignified weirdos. Look, let's be honest. There's weirdos in every fan base. There's weirdos in every fan base. There are Man United fans that are so weird, they're advocating for our club to buy substandard players for too much money after moaning about it for 10 years. There are weirdos in the Chelsea fan base who truly think right now their squad is as good as Arsenal's. There are weirdos in the Manchester City fan base who see that Pep has done nothing wrong in the last 18 months, which has seen them throw away at least 10 leads in games. There are people at Liverpool who won't put any blame on Arne Slot this season. They're weirdos, right? All of our fan bases have then there's Spurs. I'm joking, but every fan base has weirdos in them. But to single out Arsenal's is ridiculous. These narratives are a joke. And I feel it came to a head last night. And we as football fans must push back against this. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It isn't about just protecting Arsenal. It is fun. Oh, let's crush it on Arsenal. This is great fun. Everyone's doing it. Neville's joining in. The problem is your team could be next. And for me, it's killing part of the game. For me, it's gone away from being funny, a bit of banter. We're turning what used to be a joke, what used to be a bit of fun, and we're turning it into serious talking points in the game. This is crazy. You don't see it, as far as I can see, in any other sport. You simply don't. All the jokes you hear from fans about MMA fighters, from boxers, you don't hear it from the commentators. You don't hear that from DC, Daniel Cormier, in case you're wondering. You don't hear that from Rogan. You don't hear that from Bisping. They might have an opinion that you disagree with, But by and large, they know what it's like to be a fighter, or they've been around the game for a long time, and they speak with respect. They don't sit there and go, oh, look, this guy's taking people down. Boring, because they respect that part of MMA. You know, if a guy's 4 rounds up, they don't sit there in the 5th game. He should go for a knockout here and leave his chin exposed. They understand that he might be a little more conservative, that he might not take so many risks because he doesn't have to, and he's up against someone that could bang him out. Yet in football, I get why fans say these things, because we're in a desperate state when our teams are losing. So we say anything we can just out of frustration. Oh, why don't I have to attack more? That's just because you want them to, because it's the only way you can break them down. I get why fans say these things. And it's why fan content blew up, because we loved hearing it. But we don't want it from the pros. We want you to be sensible, normal, almost educational in a certain degree. Teach us about the game and stop bullshitting us. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we're going to see you all again very, very soon. Peace.